Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.
Hello, this is episode 229, and we are still dealing with... Where am I recording this? Oh, I don't want to record that there, do I? Okay. Hello, try again. This is episode 229, and we are still at... Hello, this is episode 229, and we're still with the Wing Commander and the Professor after the great stuff that went on last episode. We're going to find out that the Professor is going to offer something very special to the Wing Commander, who's not yet the Wing Commander but will be. Werewolves will get back into it next week, we're hoping. It's just been writing itself with these two characters. Sorry about that, but I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for listening. Go to the description where there's loads of stuff. There's books, Il Lupo by Gregory Alexander Sharp and The Werewolf Story by Fenrir Thorvaldsen, our two writers. So go have a look at those. Go join us on Spotify or link us or whatever it is you do with that stuff. I don't know. Anyway, sure. Bye.
After the storm.
Our future Wing Commander. The Professor's eyes had snapped open. They were grim and filled with that unnerving ancient light still flickering in them, and he croaked his damned fool question once again.
What are you?
I blinked at him, a little confused. What the bally hell kind of question was that at a time like this? Men have bally died. I was somewhat passionately inflamed in the moment.
Yes. Men die.
He told me.
All men die, I'm afraid. Eventually. It's something I've learnt from bitter experience.
I was stunned. I was bloody flabbergasted, shocked into silence as I processed this boundless chatter. I reached towards my sidearm. Luckily for the blighter, it was not there, or, in hindsight, was that a lucky outcome for me? Bloody bastardizing thing, I said to him, looking at my empty holster. The Professor gave a weary sigh, then a slightly derisive laugh as he watched me scrabble at my kit.
After this, you were going to shoot me?
His face had a bitter smile as he fell back to the ground and laughed out loud. I replaced the gunshot I wished to produce with the outrage, sheer outrage. This place is bloody destroyed, and you ask me? He raised a hand in contrition and looked at me from his prone position, struggling to get his mirth under control.
Oh, please. Please. I'm tired, wet and cold. We can sort out all the death and destruction business later, old chap. It's a genuine question. I need to know before we do anything else. Please, just do me the honour of answering it.
He then fumbled with the buttons of his soggy jacket as he spoke, removing a silver pocket flask and slowly undoing its lid. I stood there in quivering, angry silence as he drank. He really had stirred my ire. Once finished, he smiled and offered me a drink. I waved it away before he repeated.
So again, what are you?
I managed to calm my inner beast and took a breath, brushing a smear of mud off my sleeve as though that might restore some sort of sanity to the moment. And then I answered the only way a decent bloody chap should, with a straight back and a solid salute. I am an officer of the Bally British Flying Corps, I shouted, before dropping the salute and giving the chap a look to dare him to say anything derogatory about it. And who the hell are you? I demanded as he laughed at my reply. To be honest, I didn't really know what to do. He stopped laughing eventually and waved an apology at me.
I'm sorry for my derision, old chap, but it's been literally a hell of a night for us both. I often respond to such things with humour and hilarity after the fact.
He told me as he gave me a weary half smile, the sort of smile one makes when presented with a crossword puzzle that's one clue short of solvable. I started to relax at this. We'd all been through hell. We had something in common at this moment. He had the right to be in good humour, had he not? He had survived and defeated the damn Boche to boot. Not being capable of anger anymore, I looked the man over. I have to admit it wasn't a pretty sight, although I'm sure that I would look no better to him. He looked like a chap who death had shaken by the hand and offered a seat at the table. He raised a hand towards mine, and I bent over and grasped it, thinking that he was asking for aid to get to his feet. But he shook it heartily.
Professor Simon de Montfort, Esquire, Master of Occult Warfare and other related magic bollocks,
he said in a very forthright tone.
And may I add wholeheartedly that I cannot tell you how grateful I am to you, sir.
I then helped him to his feet. He was a little shaky at first, yes, but he stood with a stubbornness I could respect. A proper English pride held him up. He flourished an exemplary salute, precise and poignant. I replied, "Flying Officer, First Class Montgomery Fortescue III." I replied.
"Forte scutum salus ducum,"
he said, shaking my hand again.
"A strong shield is the safety of generals."
He knew my family motto. This set me on my back foot a little.
"Bloody fitting in this case, what?"
he said, shaking my hand still. He actually seemed to have some enthusiasm in that moment.
"Family still at Castle Hill?"
he asked me as he still shook my hand. I had no bloody idea what he was talking about, but I looked somewhat puzzled at the continuing handshake, which continued. He looked down at the handshake and stopped.
"Sorry, old chap."
He dropped the hand with a smile.
"I'm just over-thankful for you saving my soul, to be honest, and realise that men these days don't give each other a hug, manly or not. Sad, really. Handshake over, I promise."
His eyes looked into a past I did not want him to share.
"What do you say? Shall we find somewhere warm?"
he inquired. "What?" I announced. "We need to see if there is anyone here. There may be injuries and casualties. We can't just go anywhere until we've checked," I told him.
"Ah, I'm afraid not, old chap,"
he told me. "What do you bally mean, sir? We have to try and find bally survivors. Are you British or what?" I argued.
"No, I'm sorry. You've got the wrong end of the sticky stick, I'm afraid. I mean to say, we don't have to look. I'm not being obtuse, Fortescue, because believe me, there are no survivors. Well, except us."
He had a pained look in his eyes. Sorrow was there, and he dropped his head in silence. It was almost as if he was in prayer. I don't. No, there were over 20 chaps, and I garbled. He looked up, meeting my eyes, and shook his head sadly before dropping again and put a hand gently on my shoulder. I believed him, and somehow we found ourselves walking together across what was left of Montrose Air Station. Not much of an air station now, mind you, more a battlefield cemetery than an airfield. The wind tugged at the tatters of canvas, gulls pecked at scorched earth, and every step crunched over the bones of my poor old BE-2Cs. The professor leaned on his cane as he walked. Where did the bloody cane come from? I don't remember him having one the night before. The damned stick also looked older than he did, runes faintly scratched across the handle as though it had borrowed its existence from another century.
"So?"
he said at last, voice rasping with exhaustion.
"You survived?"
"Bloody well, looks like it, doesn't it?" I said.
"Against the odds, eh? Against all the odds?"
he muttered, as if the words themselves troubled him. We walked a little farther in the silence, though his eyes kept darting at me sideways, sharp, calculating. Finally coughed delicately.
You don't burn in daylight by any chance?"
"Not last I checked."
"No pallor, no fangs, and the storm didn't reduce you to ash, so not a vampire?"
I don't think he was actually talking to me at this point. He seemed to be just voicing his thoughts. "A vampire?"
No, you're not that, are you?"
I stopped dead in my tracks. "I say, are you in a habit of accusing officers of the Crown of being blood-sucking fiends?"
"Only when they survive things they had no right to,"
he replied, dry as kindling. I harumphed and kept walking. He caught up, cane clicking, now on stone.
"You also fell from the sky without so much as a scratch, not even a bruise. You walked away from a crash that would have turned another man into a fine paste spread across the soil.
Good breeding, I said. He raised an eyebrow.
Or something else. An immortal, perhaps. A revenant. One of those tiresome, cursed wanderers who collect lifetimes the way other men collect stamps. You know, philatelists.
I shot him a glare. I'm not a bloody stamp.
Then perhaps an angel.
He pressed.
No, not one of those, I don't think. No. Maybe a demon.
He looked like a man in a quandary.
No, definitely not. If you were, you'd be a remarkably poor example.
I felt a little hurt at this. Poor example? I mumbled. Really?
No, I've met the choirs and the legions in my time.
He stopped, paused for a moment as if in thought. I stopped likewise and turned to him. He had a hand on his chin as he stared at me for a moment that lasted, well, a little too long to be comfortable.
You're neither. No demon nor any angel I've encountered would wear a moustache quite so aggressively.
That earned him a proper British poof. I'll thank you not to insult the moustache. It's all that stands between civilization and barbarism. This is beauty.
Yes,
He said somewhat dismissively before setting off again. I caught up to walk beside him once more. For a time the only sound was our boots on the broken stony field and the caw of a crow that had replaced the gulls. He was still glancing at me every now and again, looking at me every time like a man trying to catch the trick of a card sharp. I let him stew. I let him think. We passed the ruined hangar, the smell of burnt oil drifting out in thick, greasy waves. Local men, the fire service, and a couple of the town's bobbies were already at work inside, dragging wreckage into heaps. One man tried to stop us as we passed. I saluted automatically.
What do we do?
The chap asked. I smiled at him as I looked around the scene of devastation. Poor devil looked dead himself. I didn't have many words for them just yet. At this moment, I would go and get your head down, old chap, or maybe help the town. There's nothing we can do here. They're all, I said, sweeping my arm over the field. They are all dead, I'm afraid. The man nodded and started calling to his companions as he wandered back towards them. Where are you staying, old chap? I asked to break the silence.
Staying?
He blinked at me owlishly.
Nowhere. I came by train. My bag's in the left luggage at the station.
I shook my head. Well, that won't do. You'll come with me to the Star, perfectly respectable hotel. Survived last night's tempest, I hope. They know how to make a proper breakfast. Not that the cook likes me, but then who does? The professor tilted his head, regarding me as if I'd just offered him a room in hell.
You're inviting me to share quarters with you?
Don't be daft, man. I'll have them give you your own room. This isn't Eton. I haven't shared a room with another chap since... Well, best not to reminisce, really. That earned me the faintest chuckle, though it was clear that suspicion still gnawed at him. So together we walked out of Montrose Air Station over the trampled grass, through the half-collapsed gates, and beyond lay the town. Montrose itself looked as though the storm had taken a personal dislike to it. The high street was a mess of broken tiles and shattered windows. Chimneys toppled like children's blocks. Housewives swept glass into piles while their husbands hauled beams off the street. The baker's shop had lost its sign, but the smell of bread wafted defiantly through the wreckage. Children, barefoot and wild-eyed, darted between legs to gather kindling from the fallen rafters. One poor fellow stood in front of what must have been his tailor shop, shaking his head at the sodden ruin of fine suits, now strung like laundry across the cobbles. But no one screamed, no one wept. This was Scotland. They simply muttered, spat, and got on with the business of cleaning up. We threaded through it, the professor silent, me offering my halloos to folk as we passed it. It was strange. I felt I owed them some explanation, some apology. What would I say? Sorry your roof blew off, old thing. We were fighting sky demons. You understand. One, though, so tally-ho. No, better to keep mum. The professor finally spoke again.
You don't seem troubled.
By what? I asked him curiously.
By loss. By death. By The impossible. Most men, when they witness such things, are broken. But you...
He gestured vaguely at me, his cane drawing a wobbly line in the air.
You whistle and stroll as if we'd just returned from a cricket match.
I shrugged. Someone has to keep the old chin up, eh? Besides, what's the point of worrying about what's already done? Better to look forward, find a drink, find a bath, and a bed before starting again, what? He studied me as if weighing the truth of it, and then gave a slight nod.
Perhaps that's your gift, a certain indestructible optimism.
Optimism? Hell, it's habit, old habit. You fly enough biplanes built of string and glue, and you get used to whistling past the graveyard. I tried to tell him with a bit of enthusiasm. We reached the bridge over the South Esk, where the river foamed and frothed, carrying branches and debris from the storms out to the sea. For a moment, both of us paused and watched it rush. The professor spoke softly, almost to himself.
I saw her, you know. Green-eyed Lady Luck. She had your back.
I stiffened, but said nothing.
She came to my aid last night, too. She's got a sweet spot for you, it seems. She wouldn't aid me if it were not for you. I know that for sure.
I remained a blank canvas to his stare. He didn't push. Not yet. Instead, he looked at me sidelong, and in that half-broken smile of his I saw something shift. Suspicion? Well, it hadn't gone, no, but in its place was the faintest glimmer of amusement. Perhaps even slight respect.
Well, very well, flight officer. The Star it is. And tomorrow, perhaps, we'll discuss what sort of creature you truly are.
Tomorrow? I agreed, though inwardly I prayed he'd forget. We turned down the high street together, past the shattered windows and the stoic townsfolk sweeping up after the storm. Two men bound by something neither of us sort of cared to name yet. Perhaps we'd been enemies last night, allies now, and possibly, God help us both, we were going to be friends. Future Wing Commander. The Star Hotel had survived, though it looked as though the storm had tried to chew the shutters off. Inside, the staff were putting on the best display of British fortitude I've ever seen. A bit of sweeping here, a stiff drink there, and the absolute insistence that lunch would be served, sir, come hell or high water. We had both slept, probably not well, but enough, and bathed to an appropriate standard, and now with the sunlight slanting through the cracked windows and the faint smell of roast beef drifting from the kitchen, I found myself opposite the professor at a table for two. He ate like a man who hadn't had a proper meal in weeks, neat, precise, but with a quiet hunger that gave him away. I picked at my beef and lit a cigarette and let the silence hang until he inevitably cracked.
So,
he said, dabbing at his mouth with a napkin.
Are you ready to tell me your tale?
Tell you what, I asked, though I knew perfectly well. He gave me the look of a man who had no time for coyness.
How you survived. Why you survived. What you are.
I sighed, stubbed out the cigarette, and leaned back in my chair. I told you I'm a British officer, I said uncomfortably.
Well, that much I believe.
He said dryly.
But it's not the whole truth, is it?
I swirled the dregs of my fine claret in a glass. It had not been properly decanted, but that was of little sort of consequence in this moment. For a while I thought about keeping my mouth shut, but the thing about facing death with a man is that it earns him a certain shareholding in your soul, so I told him. It wasn't a pact. No angel descended. No demon offered a contract. I didn't choose this, Professor. I slung the bitter remains of the wine into my mouth. Look. Well, I think she chose me, I continued. I had helped save the chief of the hosers, wife and family, during a skeet shoot between Boer and British patrols. As a reward, the hoser did a ritual. I thought it was nothing, and I actually dismissed it, to be honest. And the professor tilted his head as he chewed. He had not dismissed what was said. He had no look of disbelief. He actually showed curiosity, so I was happy to continue. I think I was either 18 or 19, still very green, Boer War, bloody awful mess. Then after the ritual, we were travelling away, my patrol was ambushed, pinned in a gully. Many rifles firing down on us, and really not a hope in hell, to be honest. I paused in thought. Every bloody man around me fell, even my horse fell. Everyone dead, everything dead. I was the only one who stood up again with bullet holes in my coat, and not a single scratch on me. I'm sure the Boers swore blind that they'd hit me half a dozen times, and I swore at them that they must have been drunk. I lit another cigarette, inhaled, let the smoke curl up towards the cracked ceiling, let that sink into the man's thoughts as he sat across from me, daubing more horseradish onto his beef. After that, it just kept happening. Mines that didn't go off underneath me. Horses that bolted just before the shell landed. Snipers who could shoot the buttons off my tunic, but not seem to hit the man inside. Always me, always alive, while all the good men around me... I trailed off and poured another drink instead of ending the sentence. The professor studied me in silence. His expression was unreadable. Finally, I gave him the smile, the one I'd been practicing for years, a smile that said, "Don't ask too many questions." So, you see, Simon, old chap, no demon, no angel, no bargain with old Nick. Just look, so bloody absurd it might as well be a curse. I raised my glass in a mock toast. To Lady Luck, our fickle mistress, but mine all the same, I said. He didn't raise his glass, not yet. He continued eating in silence, but there was a flicker in his eyes. Suspicion, yes, but also something else. Recognition, I felt. We ate, or rather the professor ate, with the quiet precision of a man who believed every bite deserved its own moment. I pushed food around my plate, chewing slowly, grateful for the calm. For once, I didn't feel compelled to fill the silence. Silence, I discovered, could be a fine companion. I suppose especially after a night of thunder, howling winds, and men screaming in the dark. Across from me, Professor Simon de Montfort, occultist, scholar, and thorn in the backside of the inexplicable. Well, he was clearly thinking. His eyes stayed on his plate, but his mind was running circles in another room. The only sounds were the faint clink of knives on china and the crackle of the fire and the soft murmur of other diners trying very hard to pretend life was getting to be normal again. I found myself studying him, sharp-featured with that curious mix of soldier's posture and the bookworm's intensity, a man of contradictions, and I realised a man I was somewhat compelled to like. So I let him have his silence and enjoyed mine. At length he put his knife and fork down and dabbed his mouth and looked at me, not casually, not idly, but with the weight of someone who had made a great decision.
Montgomery,
he said, voice low.
Is it okay to use your first name?
I nodded my approval.
Good. I have a proposition for you.
I arched an eyebrow. If it's marriage, Professor, I would warn you I'm very bad at fidelity and even worse at bloody dancing. He didn't smile. Not a crack, not even a twitch. That told me he was serious.
I have been authorized,
he said,
by a select group within the War Office to assemble a unit. Not a conventional one. Something specialized. A service designed to investigate, confront, and, if necessary, eliminate threats of an occult nature.
He paused, letting the word occult hang between us like smoke. I set down my fork. Please go on.
We call it the Special Occult Service.
Ha! I gave a short laugh. The S.O.S? Save our souls? Good Lord, man, that's asking for trouble. Sounds like something you'd scribble on the back of a postcard while drowning.
Perhaps,
he said, unamused.
But it'll be Britain's first line of defense against the enemies the ordinary soldier just can't fight. Superstitions given form. Legends weaponized. Forces that even the storm last night might have merely hinted at.
He leaned forward slightly.
I need men I can trust. Men who have survived what should have killed them. Men who can look madness in the eye and walk away unbroken.
Should I be flattered? I muttered.
And
He continued.
men who can fight, not just on the ground, but in the skies. Much of the war will be as last night. The air will become the next battlefield. And if the enemy has learned to bend certain powers, we're going to need our own.
I stared at him, then reached for my glass, smirking. You're bloody serious?
Utterly.
The claret burned pleasantly as it went down. I set the glass aside, leaning back, and gave him my most sceptical look. So, wait a moment. You want me to join your little band of monster hunters, Professor? To be the chap with the wings? Monty, the magnificent aerial ace of the supernatural skies? For the first time that evening, a flicker of amusement touched his lips.
Something like that.
I lit another cigarette, more for the thinking time than the smoke. Outside, through the fractured glass, I could hear the town at work. Hammers, shouted orders, the scrape of debris being clear. Montrose was already stitching itself back together. And here I was, being asked to dive headfirst into a war most people didn't even know existed. I thought of the men I'd lost, the patrols that had gone to pieces while I remained absurdly untouched, the faces of comrades who never made it back. Luck had spared me again and again, and for what? To drift from battle to battle, forever just the survivor? Perhaps this Special Occult Service was the answer, a way to use my ridiculous fortune for something larger than myself. Or perhaps it would kill me where bullets and bombs had failed. Either way, it was tempting. Finally, I blew a smoke ring toward the ceiling and gave him a nod. All right, Professor, you've got your aerial man. Simon's eyes narrowed slightly as though weighing whether I meant it. Then he extended his hand across the table, and I shook it. Firm grip, steady eyes.
Good,
he said simply. I couldn't help but grin. But I'm telling you now, if your Special Occult Service expects me to wrestle a vampire bare-handed, I'm demanding double rations and a bottle of whiskey permission.
Duly noted,
he replied with the faintest ghost of a smile. And just like that, the silence returned, but this time it wasn't the silence of two men alone with their thoughts, it was the silence of bloody comrades. The kind you only get at the start of something neither of you really fully understands. But both know it's going to change everything.
Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.